We are live.
Okay, we're going to go now. Good evening, everyone. Members of the press and public journalists to the local development committee. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to everyone viewing on YouTube. To minimise travel and maintain social distancing, both officers are joining this evening by Zoom. Can everyone present hear me?
Yes.
My name is Councillor Harvey Singverdi and I'm the chair of the local development committee. Please, can everyone physically present continue to wear their face mask covering and keep your word to speak. After you've finished speaking, please recover your face. For members in the room, when you are speaking, can you please speak clearly and loudly so that the microphone can pick up what you are saying. When we are not speaking, as already advised, please keep your face covered. For those joining by Zoom, please mute your microphones. And if you are not speaking, I will ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves.
Hi, good evening. Constable Clerk will from Basic West.
I'm Anne Easter. I'm one of the councillors for Canning Town North.
Members of the committee, want to introduce themselves? Officer, sorry.
I'm Jane Custance. I'm the Director of Planning and Development.
I'm Ben Farron. I'm the Interim Development Manager of the Urban Newham team.
I'm Louis Moore. I'm Interim Development Manager, Urban Newham team.
I'm Alexandra O'Dwyer, Solicitor.
Claire Newitt, Principal Planner.
Alex Planner.
Pinamonti Hyde, Transport Planner.
Abigail Fishburn, Planning Officer.
Zara Ali, Housing Officer.
Mumtaz Khan, Councillor for Green Street West.
I want to remind members that a vote second will be taken by way of raising your hand in order that it can capture this on the screen. That's something that you want to do. Apologies for absence. I've received an apology of absence from Councillor Mark. Marion Darwood, are there any further apologies?
Chair.
Items of the previous meeting held on 29th November 2021, seems a long way away. Pages 13 to 18. Page 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 33 members.
Agreed.
It's noted that he attended the meeting and that is all. Item 3, declarations of interest, anyone?
The item about St Margaret's Convent is in my ward. Thank you.
Item 4, determining planning applications. Members are asked to know the advice of head and legal services on determining planning applications. This is noted.
Noted.
Last one for myself. The committee has received the following request to address the committee. Would the speakers please identify themselves when I call out for the names? For item 6, we have Mirza Ali, Adam Town, Hamish Warren, Rafael, Marcelo, Francis Young.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And for item 8, we have Sam Neil.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. And for item 9, we have 2 chapters, Elizabeth Ellis and Tom Ellis. The usual practice is to allow for 5 minutes in total for orders and objectives. They agreed?
Agreed.
Would members please have the officers' update report circulated? Thank you. Can I call on the representative of the Clerk to present the full workman's application, please?
Shall I start with my presentation or the applicant to present it?
You. You normally have the other way around. It's the officer first, then the LDC committee review.
Can you all see that?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 6 relates to an application submitted by the London Borough of Newham Affordable Housing Delivery Team for the site at the Old Burgoyne Depot and Melford Road garages. The site is in East Ham and is accessed from High Street South to the east, from Melford Road to the north, and it also has a frontage onto Brooks Avenue to the south. This is the existing site, highlighted in yellow. To the north are 2 tall buildings, St George's Court and St Mary's Court. Both of those are also within the council's ownership. A lot of the terraced housing to the south, that also is within the council's ownership. Well, a number of them are. Bird's eye view of the site where you can see those 2 tall buildings referred to. Some photos of the existing site taken from High Street South, from the north and the south, so you can see the Burgoyne Depot and the adjoining fire station. These are the garages to the rear and also the rear of the Burgoyne Depot, which is now fairly dilapidated. So the application seeks planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey extension to the retained depot building, the construction of a 6-storey residential building, a 2-storey 4-bedroom house, and a row of 5 Part 2, Part 3-storey townhouses to provide 48 residential units. It is 100% affordable housing, split roughly 2/3 London affordable rent and 1/3 shared ownership. It also includes a linear open space and public realm with associated landscaping and boundary treatments, 5 on-site disabled parking spaces, 20 replacement parking spaces for the wider estate, and 87 cycle spaces. This is the proposed site layout. So highlighted in red is the Burgoyne Depot building, which has a 2-storey extension upwards. Highlighted in green is building B, sorry, that was building A. Highlighted in green is building B, which is a 6-storey building. Highlighted in yellow is the new 3-storey 4-bedroom house, which fronts Brooks Avenue. And highlighted in blue is the part 2, part 3-storey row of 5 townhouses. These are the elevations for building A, which is the retained depot building, where you can see a 2-storey extension upwards. These are the elevations for building B, which is the 6-storey building. This is building C, which is the single dwelling house on Brooks Avenue. And this is building D, which is the row of 5 townhouses at the rear of the site. Here's some visuals of the proposal. So again, a view from High Street South, with you can see the Burgoyne's depot extension, and to the rear of it, to the left, is you can see the 6-storey building above the top of those houses. This is a visual of the proposed house on Brooks Avenue. And then these are the part 2, part 3-storey townhouses, building D. So the key planning considerations are the principle of development, housing offer, urban design and placemaking, impacts to neighbouring amenity, and sustainable transport. Principle of development. The proposals provide 48 residential units, making a positive contribution to housing target delivery within an existing residential environment. The existing depot building has been vacant for around 10 years, and the functionality of the green space to the north of the site, which would be partly within the site of building B, would be retained as open and green space. The principle of development is therefore supported. Housing offer. 21% of the units are 3-bedroom homes, which does fall 18% short of the 39% target in policy. The application has been accompanied by a viability assessment, which satisfactorily demonstrates that it would not be viable to increase the provision of affordable family homes on this site. In addition to the 3-bedroom homes, the proposals provide 2 4-bedroom homes and 1 5-bedroom homes, increasing the overall proportion of homes suitable for families to 27%. Proposals do also include a number of houses rather than solely flats. In terms of affordable housing, it's 100% affordable housing. That's 67% London affordable rent and 33% shared ownership. This would meet an identified local need. 5 of the homes, which equates to 10%, would be wheelchair accessible, with nearby blue badge parking for each of them. All units meet minimum standards for internal space, and all units are dual aspect. All units, with the exception of 2, which owing to site constraints, would meet minimum standards for external space. The 2 units that do not meet these standards for external space would have additional internal space as compensation. The overlooking between units has been minimised through the chamfering of massing and the positioning of windows. And the daylight and sunlight assessment submitted with the application evidences good levels of daylight and sunlight in the context of the urban nature and constraints of the site. The housing offer is therefore supported. Urban design and placemaking. The site isn't designated as suitable for tall buildings, but in the context of the nearby 8-storey buildings, St George's Court and St Mary's Court, a 6-storey building would not be out of place. The other proposed buildings have been designed to reflect the more modest heights of neighbouring buildings on their respective boundaries. The proposals would increase permeability by providing a link from the existing housing estate to the high street. This would also increase passive surveillance and active frontages. The depot building has been extended sensitively and brought back into beneficial use. All materials would respond well to the site context. All private and communal entrances are considered to be prominent and legible in the street scene. The proposals are supported in this regard. Impact on amenity. This will be considered in relation to each of the 4 buildings in turn. So building A, the southwest corner is limited to 3 stories to reduce impact. There are windows overlooking the adjacent semi-detached houses, those which are on High Street South, but the degree of overlooking would not be significantly greater than overlooking from the existing depot when that was occupied. There are no balconies immediately on the boundary and overlooking these houses. Building B, the 5th and 6th stories of this building are set back from the boundary with the houses on Brooks Avenue to reduce any overlooking and overshadowing. Some balconies would provide a view into the gardens of these houses, but this would be mitigated to a certain extent by the separation distance. The building would be in close proximity to the communal gardens at St Mary's Court, but given the open aspects of this open space in other directions and the overlooking that exists from other buildings at present, the impact is not considered to be significant. Building C. This is the single dwelling house. It's designed to broadly align with the front and rear elevations of houses in the existing terrace. There would be some impact on the adjacent house in Brooks Avenue due to the two-storey projection beyond its rear elevation, but it would also remove a single-storey outbuilding that currently runs along the entire side boundary. It would introduce a three-storey flank wall at the end of the gardens of the houses on High Street South. However, it doesn't extend the full length of their rear gardens, and therefore it does leave some open aspects. Building D. This is the part 2 and part 3 storey townhouses that are on the boundary of the rear gardens of houses on Brooks Avenue. It includes a staggered building line to reduce impact, but it would still have some overbearing impact. The south-facing windows at first floor level are to be obscure glazed to protect privacy, and this will be secured by condition. There are also roof terraces. However, these would be set back from the boundary with the houses on Brooks Avenue and would be obscured by planters to protect privacy. So there's daylight and sunlight for all buildings. A large proportion of neighbouring windows pass the BRE daylight and sunlight tests, with the majority that don't failing only marginally and or due to reasons such as overhanging balconies within their own sites. All gardens and open spaces meet the BRE recommendations. In summary, the proposals would have some detrimental impacts on the amenities of a small number of neighbouring occupiers. However, officers recognise that the BRE guidance offers flexibility in an urban context and that the proposals are generally in accordance with the guidance. On balance, and in light of significant weight given to the benefits of providing affordable housing, the proposals are supported in this regard. Sustainable transport. The loss of the garages, given they are not large enough for the modern car, would not increase parking stress in the locality. There are parking spaces around the existing garages, and these would be re-provided to the north of the application site and would be available only to existing residents of the estate, so those who live in St Mary's Court and St George's Court. The proposed development would be car-free, with the exception of 10% blue badge parking, and future occupants of the proposed development would be prevented from parking both on the estate and on the public highway. Cycle parking would meet London Plan standards in relation to quantity, but details on the types of stands will be secured by condition. The proposals in terms of sustainable transport are supported. Public consultation was carried out, letters were sent to neighbouring occupiers, site notices were displayed and a press notice was published. The response to this consultation is contained within Appendix 4 of the committee report. So moving to the recommendation, the Local Development Committee is asked to note the committee update and resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a legal agreement under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act, based on the heads of terms identified at Appendix 10 of the report and the conditions listed in Appendix 8 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member? Questions? You want to hear the applicant? The applicant shares. The report. The applicant, please. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Because applicant, we have just heard the. We need to hear the applicant.
I think we need to go through the report. We have to go through the report. Thank you. Claire, could you take your recommendation down so we can have a presentation from the applicant?
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the London Borough of Newham's Affordable Homes Delivery Team, who are the applicants for the proposed housing scheme at Melford Garages and Burgoyne Depot. This scheme is being brought forward as part of the Council's Affordable Homes programme. The application site comprises the garages immediately to the south of St George's and St Mary's Courts, but also incorporates the 2 and 3 storey vacant Victorian Burgoyne depot building, which fronts onto the High Street South. The scheme retains part of the currently vacant Burgoyne depot building, including the front facade, and brings this locally important building back into active use for affordable homes by repairing, restoring and extending the building by 2 floors. In addition, the scheme introduces a new 6-storey residential building, a 2-storey house and a row of Part 2, Part 3-storey townhouses. In total, the scheme provides 48 high-quality affordable homes, comprising 32 affordable rent and 16 shared ownership units, with a mix of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 bed units and 5 wheelchair units. The proposals will increase permeability through the area, creating a new link between the existing estate and High Street South, and will enhance the public realm, providing a variety of spaces for planting, sitting and play. New play space will be provided for under 11s within the site, and as part of the unilateral undertaking, a contribution will be made to improve existing parks and open spaces for over 12s play provision. In association with the scheme, but outside of this application, the Affordable Homes team are also discussing with residents how to improve the communal garden area of St Mary's Court. As part of the scheme, 20 new parking spaces will be created for the existing residents of the estate, and these will be controlled through a parking management plan. The new scheme itself will be car-free except for disabled spaces, and new residents will be offered a 3-year car club membership. The scheme has been carefully designed to respond to the character of the existing area and the varied townscape. Care has been taken to minimise any potential overlooking or loss of privacy to properties on Brooks Avenue through screening and the use of obscure glazing. The scheme has been designed to passive house low energy standards and to reflect the sustainability requirements of the London Plan. All homes meet London Plan internal space and private amenity standards. All of the units are dual aspect. The proposed development exceeds the overall on-site carbon reduction requirements of 35%, achieving an overall cumulative reduction of 74%. The scheme has been the subject of 4 pre-application and design meetings since February 2021, and extensive consultation has taken place, including 2 virtual consultation meetings in March 2021, a survey on Newham's Co-Create website, 3 door knocking exercises with local residents in June, and an in-person event in July 2021. In addition, a fun day was held in August. The committee report confirms that the proposals are considered acceptable in terms of design, quality of accommodation, daylight sunlight and overshadowing, noise, outlook and privacy. A detailed construction logistics plan will be provided in order to minimise any potential impact during construction. The proposed scheme at Melford Garages and Burgoyne Depot will make a positive contribution to Newham's housing target delivery. The scheme needs to be on site by the 12th of March to obtain GLA funding. We would therefore request members to support this important scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Any questions? Can we move to the vote? Claire, could we have the recommendation up, please?
Yes, of course, I'll put it back up now.
May I ask a question? I heard the presenter, Claire, say that the development was going to be car-free, but then I heard the developer say that there are going to be 20 car spaces.
Yes.
What is there to stop people who live in the houses using those car spaces?
Ian, did you want to come in on that?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Basically, the existing connection, excuse me, the existing access road, if you like, that services the blocks of flats and will service this new development, will be private. It won't be public highway. So there will be some form of parking management there, which will include issuing permits to those who are entitled to park there. So that will be the residents that are currently parking in front of the garages that are occupiers of the 2 blocks of flats. So there'll be a a mechanism and a system there that will issue those only to existing residents in the 2 blocks, and they won't be issuing them to the residents of this new development, and then that will be managed and controlled as appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Sorry, Chair.
No further questions?
The question, it's just to mention, is that he's referring to page number 85 as quoted in the public here.
So can you move your mouse, please?
Sorry. I just want to know, is he referring to, sorry, the staff name? Just explain it to us. If he's referring to page number 85, this is quoted in public here. Is that the arrangements to parking we have in place in the service?
Well, the way how it's been put forward is that the residents adjoining the 2 blocks who currently have that parking facility, those are the only ones who'll be able to apply for permits, not the new blocks. Okay. So that's a conversation to where they'll be losing parking, but the facility will still be provided for them to park.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. There's no further questions. The recommendation is to agree for reasons for approval as set out in this report, but I'm not going to read the rest of it. So all those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much, Claire. Move on to item 7, which is Lister Community School. Dan?
Thank you, Chair. I'll share my screen with you. Is everyone able to see the presentation?
Not yet. Oh, yes, now.
Perfect. Okay, so item 7 relates to Lister Community School, located on St Mary's Road in Plaistow. The application reference 21-02245 LA3. Slide 2 shows a recent aerial photograph and partial site plan of the site. The site is bounded by St Mary's Road and Junction Road to the south, Queen Road west to the north, Northern Road to the east, with further residential buildings to the west. The street scene comprises predominantly of 2-storey terraced properties, with bungalows and 3-storey flats located sporadically. To the southwest of the site are locally listed 2-storey terraced properties with rear gardens abutting the site on Watson Street. The application in question seeks retrospective planning permission for the erection of 3 temporary classrooms comprising of 1 building and a temporary catering unit which would temporarily accommodate up to 90 existing students whilst construction work is carried out on the main school building. Slide 4 shows street view photography from November 2020, looking towards the site from Queen's Road West prior to the siting of the modular building. Whilst slide 5 shows the development as existent, taken from similar viewpoints to those on the previous slide. So slide 6 shows the western and eastern elevations of the buildings, whilst slide 7 shows the northern and southern elevations. Principle of development. The application site has recently benefited from planning permission to extend the main school building, provide a special educational needs facility, and carry out associated improvement works to the school grounds. This is in line with the development plan's aim to expand existing school sites to meet community need. The modular buildings are to be used on a temporary basis within the established school site to ensure that the school continues to operate at full capacity without detriment to any students or staff, and so that permitted work to expand the existing site can progress without delay. The temporary structures are located within an existing multi-use games area to the northern boundary of the site and would be removed no later than February 2023. This has been secured via condition. The school has several other multi-use games areas, a large playground and a playing field in the nearby Southern Road, and therefore the loss of one games court for a short period of time to allow for improvements to the existing school site to be completed would be acceptable and would not adversely impact upon the function of the school. The proposal is therefore considered acceptable in principle. Urban design. The application site retrospectively seeks permission for a pair of pre-constructed single-storey modular buildings. The buildings are flat-roofed with a height of 3.715 metres and are situated on non-intrusive foundations. The buildings have an external material appearance which respect the character of the existing school site and therefore integrate satisfactorily with the surrounding area. The buildings are situated to the northern boundary of the site and are visible from Queen's Road West. Given the single-storey nature of the modular buildings, the separation distance from the highway, and the existing boundary fencing and planting, the buildings do not appear prominent or overbearing within the context of the street scene. The canteen unit has ramped access and is therefore accessible to all pupils and staff, while stepped access is provided to each classroom. To overcome this, timetable accordingly to ensure that there are no staff, student or visitors with mobility issues required to use the temporary classrooms. The classrooms are adequately heated and ventilated to ensure they are fit for purpose and comfortable for all students and staff. So overall, the design of the scheme is supported. With regards to neighbouring amenity, by reason of their single-storey nature and position relative to neighbouring dwellings, there is no unacceptable adverse impact in terms of loss of daylight or sunlight. The separation distance of approximately 25 metres between the buildings and neighbouring properties on Watson Street mitigate any potential loss of outlook caused by the windows in the western elevation of the classrooms. The buildings are situated on non-intrusive foundations and have been delivered and will be collected when their use ceases by crane. A condition has been secured to ensure site clearance does not occur during antisocial hours. The structures are positioned within an established school site and would operate during normal school hours and not for any other purposes. Therefore, no additional noise is anticipated as a result of the buildings being in situ. Overall, no adverse harm has therefore been identified in relation to residential amenity. Sustainable transport. The existing levels of car parking, cycle parking and accessible parking within the site would be retained and are unaffected by the proposal. The modular buildings would accommodate existing pupils and staff members, and therefore the number of journeys to and from the site is unlikely to increase as a result of the development. The existing parking facilities therefore remain adequate. The modular buildings are already in situ and were delivered and are to be collected via the existing site access off of Queen's Road West. No further construction or deliveries are required in relation to these buildings, and therefore it is not considered necessary to secure a delivery and servicing plan condition. The proposal is therefore considered acceptable from a transport perspective. Any other considerations that have been identified relate to habitat regulation. The application is outside the scope of the Epping Forest Mitigation Strategy, and therefore no further ecological assessment was requested and no objections are raised to the scheme in this regard. In summary, the Local Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out within the officer's report and to delegate to the Director of Planning to grant planning permission subject to the conditions listed in Appendix 8 of the report. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next, do we have any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I believe you pronounce the area as Plaistow. That's the one in Sussex. This one is called Plaistow.
I do apologise. I'm not a local.
Oh, well, you know now. Thank you.
I'll never forget.
No, I'm sure you won't.
Any other questions or comments? Dan, could you put the recommendation up on the screen? We haven't got the applicant here.
Indeed.
Oh, is the applicant there? Has someone got a name? And do you know if the applicant's there?
I'll have a look in the waiting room. I believe the deputy head teacher is in attendance of Lister Community School, as is the agent, Carl Linder.
The vote is to change it to the does the agent or the applicant want to speak? Do you know if they're there?
Not to my knowledge, but if any of the councillors got any questions that they'd like to direct to the deputy head teacher, then I'm sure he's available to answer.
Okay, can we move on? Okay, thank you very much, James. Could we have the recommendation back up again, please?
Indeed.
Okay, the recommendation is to agree for reasons for approval as set out in the officer's report and grant planning permission based on the conditions listed on appendix 8. All those in favour? That's carried. That's approved. Thank you very much. Move on to item 8, which is the St Margaret's Convent. There we go.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone see my screen?
I'm not getting.
Sorry, was that a yes?
Oh, what's the comment? No. It seems to be a bit delayed. Someone. Thank you. Can you see that?
No.
I think there's a delay, Avi, if you want to try again.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having some IT problems. Is it showing now?
Yeah, lovely. Yes.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, members and members of the public. The application I'm presenting today is the St Margaret's Convent located in Canning Town. The site is located on the southern side of Bethel Avenue and is home to a monastic community. St Margaret's Convent contains 21 bedrooms, a chapel and office, meeting room facilities for private use. A Grade 2 listed building, the Roman Catholic Chapel of St Margaret's, is located approximately 40 metres to the southwest of the proposed building. The slides on my screen aren't moving, but I don't know if they're moving.
No, they're not. They're not.
No.
Okay, I'm going to try again, hopefully third time lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Consent is sought for the erection of a 3-storey side extension to the eastern elevation of the existing convent to provide 9 additional bedrooms for residential use and an enlarged communal area, including an expanded chapel and improved disabled access and associated work. Please note that the committee update includes alterations to the time triggers of the conditions, but does not change the substance of the conditions. This is the proposed development. The application is seeking to extend to the existing building. Sorry, it's frozen again.
Is there another auditor that has access to all the meeting?
Dan, can you assist if it's delayed?
I will now. I can't quite hear. Sorry.
You can see it. You can see it now.
Okay, great. Sorry. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I will now consider the key material planning consideration. Convents are not a particularly prevalent land use within Newham, and as such, there is no specific policy expectations for the location of a convent. Notwithstanding this, the local plan does emphasise the importance of ensuring that specialised accommodation is provided based on local need. The provision of an additional 9 bedrooms to the existing 21-room convent would enable additional sisters to reside at the premise and for sisters to continue to reside at the property as they get older. The principle of providing additional specialised accommodation is supported in this instance due to the long-established use of the site. Whilst it is a relatively large uplift in terms of overall room numbers, the site is expansive, set within unusually large grounds, and as such, it would not result in a significant intensification of the site. Furthermore, the change would allow for older residents to continue to reside at the property, and the nature of the use means that the property would operate in a largely self-contained way. As such, officers considered that the proposed development would be acceptable in principle. The design of the development. The application is situated within the setting of a Grade 2 listed building. The design of the proposed development would serve to follow the design of the existing building. The same materials and detailing would be used in the proposed section of the building. However, the materials have been used in a slightly different way to the existing building. This results in a proposed section of the building appearing subservient to the original building. The development would result in an increased footprint. However, as the building is set away from the street, the development would not appear overbearing or dominant within views. As such, the development is considered to be at an acceptable siting, scale, design, and materiality, and would not result in undue harm to the character and appearance of the property or surrounding area. The development is therefore considered acceptable in terms of its design. Given the scale and nature of the proposed extension, officers consider that it would likely have a neutral impact on the setting of the listed building. The proposed extension would be of a consistent design with the existing building and would therefore successfully integrate into the site. Sorry, it looks like it's just going to be freezing between every slide.
Start again then, Abigail.
Thank you. The impact on neighbouring properties were considered. The proposed development would be constructed on the eastern side of the application site. There are no residential properties along this eastern boundary of the application site. As such, there would be no impact in regards to the loss of sunlight, daylight, outlook, and sense of overbearing on residential units. A school is located on the eastern boundary of the application site closest to the proposed extension. The sport buildings and associated grounds are located on the shared boundary of the site. Given the separation distances involved and limited number of windows impacted, it is considered that the proposal is unlikely to result in detrimental impacts on the school. As such, the proposed development would not raise any concerns in regard to neighbouring impacts. Only 3 more slides. Great. Sustainable transport. The proposed development would result in the loss of 3 on-site car parking spaces to facilitate additional disabled car parking spaces. This would comply with the council's policy on reduced car parking. A transport statement was submitted which complied with TfL and the London Borough of Newham standards. Due to the overall scale of the development, the loss of car parking spaces would not have a significant wider impact on the local road network. Therefore, the proposal is considered acceptable in terms of transportation. Other considerations outlined in the officer's report relate to waste management, sustainable development, and the Epping Forest Special Area Conservation. These matters are addressed on page 119 of the report and meet with policy requirements, and as such are supported subject to recommended conditions. The Local Development Committee is asked to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the officer's report and grant planning permission based on the conditions listed in Appendix 8, but which have now been updated in the committee update.
Any members? No questions? No? Okay, we do have the applicant. Sam with us. Daniel? Can you hear us?
Hello,
Sam?
Chair. Yes, I can do. Thank you. Members, Chair. I'm here as the planning agent acting on behalf of the Sisters of St Margaret's Convent. I speak to you today in support of the plan application for a side extension to the existing convent building. The proposal has been brought forward following extensive consultation into how the sisters based at the convent are best to meet their current and future requirements. This includes consideration for those sisters who are elderly, infirm, and more medically dependent, and how their needs can be best accommodated. The works are proposed as it is a tradition of any monastic community to have its own infirmary where it looks after its own members in their later life. The extension will allow the sisters to look after the infirm and elderly within their community and is required as the convent does not provide enough space to meet growing needs for this type of care. The proposed side extension to the existing convent building was considered to be the most appropriate solution to meet their needs, whilst also taking into consideration the setting of the adjacent chapel, which is Grade 2 listed. The proposals will allow for improved accessibility throughout the building with the inclusion of a stretcher lift and also other internal reconfigurations which will assist in improving access for wheelchair users and others with limited mobility. The proposal will provide additional ensuite bedrooms, which have been purposely designed to meet the requirements of those medically dependent sisters at the site, therefore improving the care they can receive and improving their quality of life. With regards to the design, the appointed architects have paid special attention to the surrounding buildings and local streetscape and have sought to propose materials for the extension which are both sympathetic and in keeping with the streetscape. We trust that members reach the same conclusion as the planning officers and will allow for the plan application to be approved without delay, so they are able to move forward with the development to meet the sisters' needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I won't put it on the screen, I'll just leave it there.
Do you have any questions for the applicant? No? Quite happy. Can we move to the recommendation as shown on the screen? A brief of reasons for approval as set out in the officer's report and grant planning permission based on conditions listed in the appendix. All those in favour? Yes, agreed and planning okay, item 9, which is 88A, okay. Abigail, this is your report again. And we do have speaker Tom Ellis as well, who'll be asked to speak after the applicant. Thank you very much, Sam.
I'd sent the presentation to Richard if he wants to share it maybe, and then I can just talk it through.
Thanks, one moment. Everyone see that?
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. The application I'm presenting today is 88A Claremont Road, located in Forest Gate. The tree subject of this application is located within the Wood Grange Conservation Area. As such, notifications of works is required. The Local Development Committee is asked to confirm a tree preservation with respect to one pine tree located within the front garden of 88 Claremont Road. This is a resubmission of an application which was received in April 2020. The previous application was taken to the Local Development Committee and resolved to confirm the tree preservation order. The local planning authority can only confirm a tree preservation order within a 6-month timeframe. However, due to clerical errors and managerial vacancies, the deadline to confirm was missed. The local planning authority did not confirm the TPO within its 6-month timeframe, and as such, the provisional TPO was made redundant. The application being presented to committee today was received by the local planning authority in October 2021, serving notice to the council of proposed works to fell the pine tree. The applicant seeks to fell the tree so as to address overshadowing impacts to number 88A Claremont Road. As a result, a provisional TPO order was made on the 11th of November 2021. This provisional TPO has effect for 6 months, and the local planning authority has the opportunity to confirm the TPO within this 6-month timeframe to provide long-term protection. Following the issue of the TPO, the council has received correspondence for an objecting party. As such, the local authority's scheme of delegation requires the decision as to whether to confirm the TPO to be considered by the Local Development Committee. On the next slide, you can see the site of the tree. The next slide also shows the entrance to 88A Claremont Road. The pine tree is prominent and a positive feature within the street scene and is highly visible from Claremont Road. The London Borough of Newham tree officer has confirmed that the species is not common and considers the tree to provide a unique appearance. Further assessment from a senior arboriculturalist and London Borough of Newham design team also reiterate the opinion that the tree contributes significantly to the amenity value of the locality. The tree maintains its ability for longevity as demonstrated by being a well-established, mature and healthy tree. The tree shows no signs of disease or fatal damage. It is also noted that the trees provide a multitude of practical benefits that should be retained whenever possible. This is on the next slide, there has been some correspondence with one objecting party. A full discussion of the comments received can be found on page 132 of the committee report. The local planning authority has considered the merit of the pine tree on an individual basis and not purely on the accordance with the Wood Grange Conservation Area. Following review by a senior arboriculturalist, it is considered that the tree is sufficient distance from the property that any negative impact which would have been felt by the residents could be mitigated by lesser methods. Notwithstanding this, the tree is not considered to be substantially obstructing of natural light to constitute substantial harm to the living condition of the occupants. Permission to remove trees will normally only be given if a tree is causing serious problems that cannot be rectified by lesser or other works. On balance, the amenity impacts which would arise from the removal of the tree outweigh the impacts arising from its retention. The Local Development Committee is therefore asked to confirm the tree preservation order.
Thank you.
Um,
Just 1 second, Tom. Members, do you have any questions for the officers? No? No? Okay, we do have Tom.
Chair, so if I may please ask for the chair. If we look at the appendix 3, Chair, there's a concern from the resident, one of the residents has expressed this. How we are going to deal with this I mean, it is affecting a resident. But we need just a bit further presentation with the resident to create a consensus for if they agree with this.
The question was, do you think we can have further consultations with the sector to see how we can overcome the preservation of the?
Did we have further consultations from the original application? The application in June 2020? Yes, so we reconsulted when the new application came in and consulted all the neighbours, and the objections were to this application as well as to the previous application.
From several neighbours, I believe it was.
Just 1 second, Kevin. There was consultations, Councillor. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine, Chair. I was just looking into this appendix 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That explains a bit from the previous note. 144. So,
Any question for the officer? Anybody else? Councillor Patel?
just one quick.
Sorry, Councillor Patel.
Sorry, Chair. One of the objectives mentioned, the tree has become a good hazard. So, how do you think the safety aspect?
The question is that the objectives have mentioned that it's a hazard, safety hazard.
The tree has become a trip hazard.
A trip hazard.
Yes. If you see on the page 51, objective comment. Creating.
Yeah, sorry. So if when a TPO is if an application comes into fellow tree, we can't condition that the tree will be replaced with another condition, but when you TPO an application, it means that we can add a condition that if you want to fell or remove a tree, you can replant another tree. So therefore, if we want to safeguard our position of ensuring that a new tree will be planted, if any tree is removed, then a tree would need to have a TPO on it.
It's still got a TPO on it. Yeah.
Thanks.
If there's no further questions, Tom, we have the secretary after 5 minutes.
Hi there, thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah. So this tree, I'll just try and I'll try and share my screen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Actually, I'm not very adept to this, but basically that my mother, if she could talk at the very end of this, she's got a printout of that of an example of this tree. But so I'm actually the neighbour at 88 to this property, and also so I did submit. I did support Mrs. Ellis in having the tree felled, and also the neighbours at 86 as well. So we all three objected to the TPO, but we do understand that we want to replace the tree, or Mrs. Ellis wants to. My mother, she owns the property at 88A. She does want to replace the tree, so we feel that essentially it's a win-win-win, because that tree is becoming ever so big for a very small garden. So the tenant at 88A has very, very restricted light from the tree already, and it's far from at its greatest extent. You know, it's going to grow a lot bigger. And another worry that we have is that it's broken the concrete path leading to that, and it's the only access to that property. So, and that's presumably going to get worse, possibly necessitating a step, which means that that property will no longer have access for disabled people, or possibly it'll have inhibited access for pushchairs and stuff like that. So I think on lots of levels, the tree seems too big for both the neighbouring gardens and the garden that it's in. It's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. And what it's going to become is 60 foot. I think the canopy is potentially going to spread 60 feet. And it's a garden that's only 9 feet wide. So it's extraordinarily large. And then But the thing is, my mother is proposing to replace the tree with one from the conservation list. So in a way, I feel like what she's presenting is a win-win-win, because I've lived here for 20 years. I love the character of the estate and want to keep the sense of trees. And one other thing to bear in mind is that in my garden at 88, there's a rowan tree which was planted by the previous owners, John and Jan Locke, and they had to cut down 2 TPO trees with permission because I think they were diseased, and so these were replaced with a rowan tree and a service tree. So they're 2 beautiful trees that are actually already TPO'd, and that rowan tree is already being overshadowed by this pine tree. And the pine tree was originally, when I moved in 20 years ago, it was about a 3-foot sapling. So that was not a TPO'd tree itself, as we know, and it's not a historical tree of the area. So, but my mother is proposing adding a tree or replacing it with an appropriate tree for the garden and for the conservation area. So I feel on that basis alone, it's a win-win-win for the council and the residents.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask Tom.
Yeah.
Have you made any effort to seek an assessment from any of the horticulture expert? It said it's affecting the neighboring plants in the garden.
Yes.
Have you made any effort? Then I will come back and ask the Chair. I need to ask another question from the staff. Is there any provision if this we can get? Because it's a very costly tree, it says 50,000 pounds worth, yeah? Can we just take this tree out and then the rest? Will there be any possibility? Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I've the audio from the chamber. I've got very poor audio of what's being said in the chamber. I don't know if Abigail, can you hear?
The question was, Tom, that have you taken any specialist advice yourself or your mother to see how and what are the damages that it's currently doing and how we can try to overcome these favourably rather than taking the tree down, isn't it?
Yes, I believe my mother's had professional advice from tree surgeons, expert arborists, but I think that the general message is that it's just going to get bigger, and so at the very least, it's going to need repeated recourse to permission to prune, and which I know is not the council's problem, but obviously it's going to involve enormous cost to anyone who owns the property, my mother at the moment, and also the neighbours. I mean, the lovely family, the Sikh family at 86, who are very proud of their lawn, and their lawn's got dieback because these pine trees, not only do they create shade, they also drop, I think it's acidic needles, which actually kills a lot of, there's a strategy that those trees have for preventing other plants growing beneath them. So actually their garden is being affected, and ours as well. And my wife's actually a very keen gardener. So, and these, and obviously that's a personal tragedy for us, but it's also something that's going to get bigger, and eventually that tree could potentially overspan our entire garden on the left and the entire garden of 86 on the right. So it's considerable, and it's affecting our light, and it's certainly the tenants at 88A, that's their main reception room at the ground floor and their main bedroom at the top floor, and both rooms only have one window, and that's at the front of the building. So their light is already restricted, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years' time they will permanently be having the downstairs living room light on, because the light restriction is so extreme. So I do, yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
I've got a photo of the tree, a mature one, specimen, if anyone wants to see it.
Yeah, show it, Mum. Yeah.
It's
It's upside down. It's upside down.
sorry. The arrows, I don't know if you can see the arrows, but the black arrows are cars. And
You
the
lift it up a little bit, a bit higher, because then the people.
And the red arrows show. Sorry?
Lift up a little bit more.
Yeah, that's it.
And the red arrows show people under that tree. Admittedly, this is in Spain, but that is the classic shape of this tree. It's called a stone pine.
Chair, so this is not your tree.
No, this isn't mine. This is I got this off the internet.
Okay.
But this is the classic shape, and I've looked up, several articles on the tree, and they grow to 25 meters. I mean, they are colossal.
Thank you, Liz.
Is that okay? Yes, and this tree seems to have suddenly grown very tall. I mean, it was small for quite a long time, and now it's just shot up. So whether that's to do with climate change, I don't know. It must find the conditions very suitable for it to grow.
Well, I think it's now getting it's exponential growth. So the bigger it gets, the bigger it gets.
Yes.
So I think that's what we're worried about, is that if we don't address this now, we're going to end up with a very big problem. And structurally, it's very, very close to the house. I mean, if it was allowed to grow unchecked, it would undoubtedly start to hit all three houses. The branches would begin to reach the houses undoubtedly. I mean it's already there already. So it just seems, but what I do understand is that the TPO needs to be served in order to ensure that the tree is replaced should the application be submitted to fell it. So I do understand that, but it would be nice if we could have a nod that the case is extreme and that we are likely to get permission. Mum is likely to get permission.
Before you come in, Councillor Easter.
Just a technical question, which I think Tom has answered. So in order to have this tree, which I must say I drove past the other day and it is enormous, in order to have this tree cut down and a new, more suitable one planted, we have to keep the TPO. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify one thing, so I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding. That's just like how it.
Bruce, do you think you could help?
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that.
No, Liz, have a go. Can you just speak again, please?
Okay, my internet might drop out. I don't know what's happening with my computer. But in order to have a tree replaced, it needs to be a TPO'd, but that.
Okay, do you want to take a video of a go?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Liz.
Hi there. So yeah, just to kind of explain, to clarify what Avi was trying to say before our internet's gone. Unfortunately, the way the kind of process works is that if the tree isn't already protected, then it has to be a TCA application. So it's Works to Trees in Conservation Area. Under those applications, we're only legislatively given two options: to either issue a TPO or to allow the works to take place. In this instance, we wouldn't look to allow the felling of the tree, given that's what we're being offered is either no tree or continue as it is. So therefore we have to protect it in the way to protect essentially having a protected tree or a tree in that space. So what we essentially have to do in this instance is to TPO the tree so that it's protected. And then if there was then a subsequent application in order, which is in a TPO application, so an application to a protected tree, under one of those applications, we are allowed to attach conditions that have to be applied to. So therefore, we can attach a condition of a replacement tree. Unfortunately, the process is convoluted that you have to do it in this way. I think that, speaking with our tree officer, obviously I wouldn't want to preempt our decision on an application for a replacement tree if it was to be TPO, but I imagine there probably is some level of scope that we'd be able to look into, and we definitely would be able to have those discussions. Unfortunately, what we can allow in this is either no tree or the tree to remain as it is, and therefore that's why we're taking the decision we are in this. But we would look to work with the applicants in any subsequent scheme on the TPO if they were to apply under those applications.
Okay, so that is quite clear.
My point is, we really don't want to take this tree. I mean, I would say there should be a further consultation on this. Look into the, that's how we can just move on. I mean, if you're going to kill this tree, a valuable tree, you don't want that.
No, well, the question is, if we are able to agree this recommendation, the preservation order will be on the tree. The officers and the Ellis family can come back for change with the condition that another tree is planted in its place.
Yes, that's fine. I just
Did you get that?
Is it, may I speak?
Just a second, Tom. Sorry. Yeah.
If the applicant speak, because I want to know from applicant, the officer just explained everything, so it'd be okay for officers to explain.
Yeah, we're just getting a confirmation from Lewis that if the TPO is issued as it is, it gives them a further opportunity to come back for a condition that a different tree is planted which is suitable for the location. So that is what we're looking for. In response, would you be would this be something you'd be happy with? That a TPO is issued only, then you liaise with the officers that we have a suitable tree planted in agreement with the horticultural team as well.
Is that addressed to me?
It's to both of you, to Tom and yourself.
Sorry, the audio isn't. I think if you, yeah, I think what you're saying. Okay. Sorry, my phone's gone off. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say, which may be what you're suggesting, is that if the TPO could be upheld, but with a sort of informal note saying that the broad outline of our concern seems reasonable, that would be reassuring. Yeah.
Okay, I think legally I'm not sure how we could do this, but the question you asked me is, yes, the TPO can be as agreed in the report, subject to you agreeing that a tree in consultation with the officers is planted as a replacement, subject to planning application being approved at the time when you put an application in for the felling of the tree and replanting of a new tree. Is that right, Lewis?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. As I said, I can't preempt the decision of any other application, but obviously, as I said, this application we can only assess if there's no tree or keeping the tree. So therefore, our choices are limited, and therefore, in this case, we will look to protect it actively. However, with the TPO application, we have several more options at our disposal in terms of looking at replacements, what would be appropriate in terms of size, type, etc. And therefore, there may be more ability to have a discussion that could look more favourably upon the felling of it. I couldn't say any more nor predict any further than that at this instance, because it would be wholly down to that application and what is submitted to us for assessment.
Would it take into? Oh, sorry.
Did you quite understand that? Basically, what we're saying, I think I'll just repeat myself. To go through with the application as it is, to serve the TPO notice, that would give us the ability to come back with another application which would be determined at the planning committee that the tree is replaced with the new application as it comes through. We can't determine how the application will go, but that gives us the ability to do that.
It wouldn't, just to add, it wouldn't necessarily come to the planning committee, but that is discussion that we can have outside of this chair about how we want to go about that. We can obviously look into that.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I think we'll go with it. Tom, are you quite happy with that then?
That sounds great. Yeah, that does sound good. Yes.
Okay, and I think that if you can liaise with the council tree department, as I call it, I think it'd be really good. So we get a really good outcome to this, so that the applicant and the council will get the tree in its place, and you're happy with the tree which is planted as well. And I think this would be a good way of working together in the future. Would the members be happy with that?
Yes.
I think we're quite happy with that. And Lewis, could you just take that on board as well, please, from our side, to work with the council team as well. And outside your remit, in this instance, we're happy to assist the family.
Chair, just one point I want to clear from Lewis. Do we have the abilities and expertise to take this tree and plant somewhere else later on?
I think that would be outside our remit. Well, if we could pick it up and take it away, Tom, did you get that?
Unfortunately, unfortunately, what's being said in the chamber on I just can't pick it up.
Okay. Basically, what the offer was, if we couldn't pick it up and take it away somewhere to another location, so that way the tree would be there and we would plant another tree in this place. But I think that's not practical.
Right. Yeah.
So, take that list, this is the recommendation of the agreed for TPO, which allows us to have further consultation about planting another tree, subject to planning application when it comes to.
Yeah.
Okay, happy. Okay, those members in favour?
Tom, did you get that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for considering it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The date of the next meeting is on 21st of February. Thank you, members, for coming along. Thank you, officers and the applicants for coming along as well. Thank you, Shirley. I know we have problems with the IT and reaching officers. Thank you.